finally got my hands on the ROG Ally X, and I've been waiting to get this ever since it dropped. The original Ally had so much potential, had a powerful chip, clean design, but it definitely had its issues. And ASUS, well, they listened. They fixed the battery, improved the internals, tweaked the design, and this right here is proof of that. Now, it might actually be the handheld that competes directly with the Steam Deck OLED. In this video, we're gonna unbox it, test out some real games. I'm talking Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, Hogwarts Legacy, and see how this thing holds up in the real world. And yeah, there will be a full comparison of the Steam Deck OLED, but for now, let's dive in with the ROG Ally X.
Alright, time for the unboxing. And I don't know about you, but this is always one of my favorite parts of the experience. There's just something about peeling open a box for the first time that never gets old, especially when it's a device you've been excited about for months. The ROG Ally X ships in this sleek matte black box. ASUS has really leaned into that gamer meets pro look, which honestly sets the tone before you even see the device. Wow, there it is. The first thing I noticed, this isn't just a color swap. The Ally X looks way more serious than the original. It no longer has that white aesthetic, and in its place is this deep matte black finish that's got a kind of stealthy, almost tactical vibe. Up close, the body has a slightly textured finish now. It's subtle, but it adds just enough grip to avoid fingerprinting that plasticky sheen the first one had. This actually feels like something built for long-term use, not just to look cool on a shelf. Now, when you actually pick this thing up, it's a totally different story. The OG Ally was light, but it was top-heavy. You can feel the strain on your wrist after a while, but here, they've rebalanced it. The weight is redistributed across the entire body, and the grip, it's way deeper. My fingers sit into these curves perfectly, almost like a molded controller. It instantly feels more comfortable, like something I could hold for a solid hour or two without cramping. Even the face buttons feel firmer. The thumbsticks are tighter with slightly more tension and less dead zone right out of the box. There's still Hall effect, which is awesome for drift protection, but I swear they feel better tuned than the OG. D-pad, honestly, it's still not my favorite. ASUS still leans a little too soft here, but it's usable, and I can see it being solid for platformers. The shoulder and trigger buttons though, nice actuation, very little rattle. You can tell this is a sturdier build overall. Around the top, you notice the biggest quality of life improvement. The ROG Ally X now comes with two USB-C ports. One is a regular high-speed port you can use to charge or connect to an external display, and the other is more an advanced USB-C port, kind of like Thunderbolt, which supports even faster data transfer, external GPUs, and higher quality displays. Also, take a look at these fan vents. They've redesigned the airflow system completely. Bigger intake, relocated exhaust, and supposedly quieter operation too. And because the battery is now 80 watts per hour, double the original, you can feel that added heft, but it's not in a bad way. Honestly, it makes the whole unit feel more solid, less hollow, less toy-like. ASUS didn't just tweak the Ally, they upgraded nearly every touch point. The build, the feel, the thoughtful additions like USB-C and better grips, it all points to one thing. ASUS took feedback seriously and they're here to compete. And honestly, this is shaping up to be one of the best handheld redesigns I've seen in a long time. Alright, now let's talk specs, because this isn't just a cosmetic upgrade. Under the hood, the ROG Ally X is packing some key changes that make a pretty serious difference in how it performs day to day. At the heart of this beast is still the AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme, the same chip that powered the original Ally, and that's a good thing. It's built on AMD's RDNA 3 architecture with 8 cores, 16 threads, and 12 compute units, which means this thing isn't just handling indie games, it's legitimately powerful enough to run AAA titles, emulators, and even lightweight creative apps. Clock speeds boost up to 5.1 GHz, and paired with the integrated RDNA 3 GPU, you're looking at Xbox Series S level power in your hands, but way more flexible. Now here's where things start to get interesting. The RAM got a major upgrade. We're now working with 24 GB of LPDDR5X at 7500 MHz, which is a jump from 16 gigs on the original model. That extra memory might not sound like a lot on paper, but in practice, it makes a huge difference when you're multitasking or playing games that eat RAM like crazy. Think Hogwarts Legacy, Baldur's Gate 3, or anything with big open worlds. You also get better VRAM sharing with the GPU, which means fewer stutters, faster asset loading, and an overall smoother experience. Plus, let's be real, in 2025, 24 gigs of RAM in a handheld is future-proofing, plain and simple. Storage also got a bump. The Ally X now comes with a full 1 TB storage, which is huge because that's a standard size. Not only do you get twice the space right out of the box, but if you ever want to upgrade it later, you can slot in practically any standard SSD. You're not locked into weird form factors or needing special tools. And with install sizes ballooning like Call of Duty at 200 gigs, having a terabyte is kind of essential now. And to keep all this power in check, ASUS completely redesigned the cooling system. We're talking a 23% increase in internal space for airflow, larger fans, and new heat pipe layouts. They're promising up to 24% better thermal efficiency, but it's comforting to know that even with more power and even bigger battery, thermals haven't been ignored. So overall, yeah, the Z1 Extreme stays the same, but everything around it got smarter, faster, and more refined. More RAM, more storage, more thermal headroom. This isn't a spec bump, it's a full optimization pass. Now, let's talk about the physical experience of using the ROG Ally X. And I'll say this right away. ASUS listened to the feedback from the original Ally. Right out of the box, the biggest change you'll feel and honestly appreciate immediately is in the ergonomics. The Ally X is a completely reworked chassis. It's thicker, yes, but that extra bulk is working for you. The back grips are deeper, fuller, and far more comfortable during long sessions. In the hand, the balance is noticeably better. On the original Ally, everything felt a little top-heavy. It felt like the screen was pulling forward, especially during long play. Here, it's even more evenly distributed, making it easier to rest your hands without fatigue. The buttons and triggers have also been improved. The joysticks now sit slightly lower and have better tension, more like what you'd find on an Xbox Elite controller. There's less dead zone, better accuracy, and it just feels more premium. As I said before, the D-pad still leans a little too soft here, but it's usable and I can see it being solid for platformers. And the triggers, those have been reshaped to be more ergonomic with a more natural curve. They're also smoother in press and less squeaky than the original. I also appreciate the rear macro buttons. They're still here, but they're smaller and more flush this time, so you don't accidentally trigger them during a heated moment. We no longer have that XG mobile port, and honestly, good riddance. In its place, we now get dual USB-C ports, one of which is USB 4. That opens up a world of external GPU compatibility, faster charging, and easier dock setups. There's also a full-size headphone jack, a micro SD slot, smart venting that's positioned to not roast your hands during gameplay, another small but meaningful improvement. Aesthetically, the Ally X has gone all black, which I actually love. The bezels around the screen are still fairly slim. Now with the bigger battery and more robust chassis, the Ally X is definitely heavier. It weighs about 678 grams compared to 608 grams on the original. But again, the weight is better distributed. It feels denser, not just heavier, like you're holding something built to last. And because of the better grip design, I actually found it easier to use for longer sessions. So yeah, ASUS didn't just tweak the internals, they went back to the drawing board and made the Ally X way more comfortable, more durable, and more versatile. It looks better, it feels better, and it's more practical in every way. But of course, comfort only gets you so far. What about power? Let's push this thing with some real world gameplay tests and see what the ROG Ally X is actually capable of. Alright, let's talk performance because this is where the ROG Ally X really wants to prove it's not just a refresh. On paper, the AMD Z1 Extreme is the same as before, but in practice, it feels like a much more refined system. A huge part of that is the bump to 24GB of LPDDR5 RAM. And no, that's just not a number for the spec sheet, it actually matters. That faster, larger RAM helps in everything from faster game loading to smoother performances in AAA titles, multitasking, and even just running launchers like Xbox Game Pass, Steam, or Epic. You don't feel that same lag or memory bottleneck that you might have noticed on the original Ally. Gameplay is more stable, not just high FPS, but consistent FPS. You're not getting those dips during cutscenes or sudden stutters when the screen fills with effects. And that makes a big difference in how immersive things feel. Another major shift is the cooling system. ASUS clearly reworked airflow and thermal distribution here. It runs cooler under load, the fans ramp more intelligently, and the heat is directed away from your hands better. I played longer sessions without even thinking about the temperature, which if you used the first Ally, you know that always wasn't the case. That said, let's be real, the fan noise is still there, especially in turbo mode. When you're pushed to 25 to 30 watts, it's not obnoxious, but it's present. So if you're gaming in a quiet room and not using headphones, you'll definitely hear it. As much as performance feels improved, you're still working with a handheld PC running Windows, which means every now and then you'll get some of that classic Windows weirdness, slow app launches, UI quirks, or a notification popping up in the middle of your game. It's better, but not perfect. Also, yes, the GPU is still integrated, so you'll still have to lean on things like FSR or tweak settings on demanding titles. You're not playing maxed out Cyberpunk at native res and full frame rate, but you are playing it, and that's still wild for something this size. So overall, the Ally X performs like a machine that's finally in sync with its hardware. But here's the kicker. Performance doesn't mean much if the battery can't keep up. And I'm happy to say, this is the first ROG Ally I've used where I didn't have anxiety about the battery. The Ally X comes with an 80 watt per hour battery, literally double the capacity of the original, and that changes everything. We're talking Steam Deck OLED level endurance right now. To test it out, I ran a real world scenario. Connected my favorite headset, set the brightness to about 60%, and launched Final Fantasy VII through Steam. After about 2 hours and 45 minutes, I was still going, and that's while playing a graphically rich title with full audio, cloud sync, and background apps running. That's a massive leap from the 1 to 1.5 hours we were getting before under similar conditions. Of course, if you crank everything to turbo and blast AAA titles at 1080p with FSR off, yeah, you'll burn it through under 2 hours, but that's expected. What matters is that now you have the option. You don't always have to game near an outlet anymore. Charging speeds are solid too. You've got dual USB ports now, so you can charge and use accessories at the same time. And the included 65 watt charger tops it up quickly. But here's the bottom line. For the first time, the ROG Ally doesn't feel like it's betraying itself with poor battery life. It finally delivers performance and endurance in the same package. Now let's talk about something that really ties the Ally experience together, Armoury Crate. And yes, I know, most of the time, bundled manufacturer software is just bloatware, but here, Armoury Crate is essential. Right off the bat, the Armoury Crate interface has been refined for the Ally X. It's snappy, clean, and built for handheld use. You're greeted with a central dashboard where you can check your performance mode, system stats, temperatures, RAM usage, everything you need at a glance. Navigating with the joysticks or touchscreen is super intuitive, and I found myself using it almost like a quick command center. You got access to full performance profile control, silent, performance, or turbo, or you can make your own custom profiles. One of my favorite features, button remapping and joystick dead zone adjustments. You can completely remap the entire controller layout, adjust stick sensitivity, and even fine-tune the trigger response. That means more precise movement in games like Elden Ring and smoother camera control in shooters. There's also a built-in game launcher that organizes your library across Steam, Epic, Xbox Game Pass, all in one piece. It's not perfect, but it's clean, fast, and keeps everything organized. You can boot straight into a game without even leaving Armoury Crate. Overall, Armoury Crate on the Ally X feels like it was designed with players in mind. It's not an afterthought. It's part of what makes this feel like a polished premium handheld PC. And it gives you full control over performance, thermals, and layout in a way that actually empowers your experience. Alright, after spending real time with the ROG Ally X, here's where I land. This is the handheld ASUS should have launched in the first place. Everything from the battery life to the upgraded internals to the quality of life improvements. It's clear they really listened to feedback. Is it perfect? No. Windows still has its clunky moments. The Armoury Crate software, while better, isn't flawless, but this thing has matured in a big way, and honestly, it finally feels like a proper alternative to the Steam Deck, and in some ways, it's better. If you're someone who wants raw horsepower in a handheld, whether you're diving into Cyberpunk, Final Fantasy, or Elden Ring, the Ally X is an absolute beast. The AMD Z1 Extreme chip still holds its own, and now with the better cooling and battery, you're not sacrificing performance to go portable. If you're more of a casual or travel gamer, someone who wants to chill on the couch or play during downtime, the battery life and weight balance improvements make this way more viable than the original. If you want a premium handheld that lets you play AAA games at impressive settings, gives you the flexibility of PC and Linux gaming, and finally fixes all the biggest issues of the original, the Ally X is it. Let me know in the comments what other handhelds you like over the Ally X, and if you want to see how this stacks up against the Steam Deck OLED, I've got a full comparison video coming up. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.